Thank you very much, Akis, for flying down all the way from London for our Rising Bharat Summit. Thank you, Siddharth, for flying down to New Delhi. It's a very exciting time in AI. Just a while ago, I was in conversation with Arvind Srinivas of Perplexity, and he said he gets very little sleep these days because when he stops working and he's unwinding, he's still thinking about what is happening because the pace of disruption is just so much. So tell me how you are infusing AI in what you do. So for those who are not aware, Nothing is a smartphone brand. Akis was with OnePlus before he decided to build this completely new smartphone brand. And India is now the biggest market for Nothing. So that's amazing. And ElevenLabs was the AI startup that worked on the Modi Lex Fridman podcast recently. So, you saw PM Modi talking real time in English, content getting dubbed. That happened due to ElevenLabs' AI efforts. So huge round of applause for both of them. Akis, what's happening in the world of smartphones?
Yeah, I think AI brings quite an exciting opportunity to the table. I think for the longest period ever, there has been this kind of app-led user experience when it comes to our smartphone, and this hasn't really drastically changed in the last 10, 15 years. And on the other hand, our dependency on smartphones has drastically changed. We use smartphones for everything nowadays. And therefore, AI brings a whole new opportunity in terms of redefining that user experience. If you think about the app-led experience, is very siloed in a way, where you need to kind of open different screens, menu, apps to kind of bring content or things you want to do. Whereas AI, if applied thoughtfully on top of this experience, you will be able to kind of be a connective tissue between your intent and action, right? Your smartphone understands probably more than yourself, and basically it will help facilitate a user experience that's a lot more intentional, more contextualized, and also a lot more dynamic. Because if you think about the current experience in consumer tech products, those are kind of system forced onto the user. Whereas now we have the opportunity to be building systems that adapt to the users, because the way you would use a smartphone is probably different the way I would use a smartphone or the content I would consume. So that's what we're kind of working on. That shift will be happening in the next probably 10 years and in a gradual way. But at the end of the day, drastically changing the whole smartphone user
So will we be
experience.
spending more time on smartphones than ever? I mean, smartphone addiction, screen addiction is already an issue. Is that only going to go up? Will we become slaves of the AI agents operating our smartphones?
If anything, I think our smartphone usage will become a lot more intentional, right? Because now you're using apps or services that have their own agendas, right? Whereas in the future with AI, basically it will be systems that will adapt to your user experience. Even now social media, for instance, you open your social media, you see everything except content from your maybe best friend, because she's not posting so much, and it doesn't come into the algorithm. But in the future, that content will be from your best friend or family member, will be able to kind of be brought up straight onto your maybe home screen without having to open an app. So you kind of keep in touch with people that you meant to be in touch with when you first started using social media. That's where things heading. So agendas won't be pushed onto you, but the user experience will be a lot more personalized, a lot more dynamic, and hopefully a lot more intuitive and intentional. So hopefully you'll be spending less time, or at least the time you'll be spending will be a lot more productive on your smartphone.
Right. Siddharth, tell us about this podcast of Modi. How did you do this live AI dubbing? And what was interesting was typically when we see this happening live, right, someone else is doing the voiceover. But here it was PM Modi's own voice. So did you train it on his voice? How long did it take? Because it was a 3-hour interview. And it was like he was talking in his own voice. How did AI do that?
First off, thanks for having me and ElevenLabs here at this event. Glad to be here. The Modi and Lex Friedman interview, it was a culmination of a journey for us, right? We're a 2-year-old, little over 2 years AI lab. We build our own audio and models.
Which is already raised 250 million, valued at 3 billion in just 2 years.
Exactly, that's right. So it's been an unbelievable year from January 23 when we put out our first model publicly to today where, here I am amongst all of you, right? So it's a fantastic journey. Now, we've had a partnership, with Lex for a couple of these already, right? So, we worked on the Javier Milei podcast he did. We worked on the one with Zelensky. And, we got to participate in the opportunity to make the Modi interview a lot more accessible, but also to make Lex Friedman more accessible in India, right? I think if you look at his voice in Hindi, I would say that was pretty spectacular as well, right? Now, that's pretty much what our mission is. We're trying to make content accessible in every voice and every language all around the world. So, when we got this, the team got together, we said, how do we do justice to this? How do we make sure we deliver the best experience so that, in the context of what we just heard from Akis, I think there's the other side, which is also an extension, which is how do you sort of deliver that ultimate personalization? Because finally, content at the end of the day is about connecting at an individual level. We've already seen that journey on the distribution side and content. We've started seeing that to evolving palettes of content consumption when it comes to social media, digital content, and so forth, so on. And now what AI does is it takes that and gives it its next jump, right? And we were able to be a part of that for, something as relevant and important as this.
Right. So give us an example. You, me and Akis are talking right now in English. Suppose we want to do this, want this to be accessed in, say, Hindi and Tamil. In our voices, like in Akis's voice Tamil, in your voice Hindi, my voice both. How long will it take for you?
So the state of the technology is today that later today we could actually have this ready, right? We could...
Why don't you do this for us?
You could do this if you chose. If you want, after this, we could go create a Chandra voice clone and then...
That is scary because it can be used in multiple ways.
By you.
Okay.
So I think that's the other part which is important, right? You sort of put the power in the hands of the likeness IP voice owner in that sense. So, it's a liberator for you. You have your voice clone, and then you get to choose what the purpose is, and you get to use it in a way which makes sense for you and amplifies everything that you're doing today.
Right. So how do you create those checks? Because what if somebody uses Siddharth's voice clone and starts sending notes to employees of ElevenLabs? How do you prevent that? What checks are you putting in place?
So, I think we're in a category where from day one, we realize that responsibility has to be a part of the framework, right? From day one. So we've got our own responsibility framework, which is really around moderation, then, accountability, and then finally provenance. So today what we do is, for example, in the Mr. Modi voice clone example, which we just discussed, the average person can't go up onto ElevenLabs platform at least and then start generating clones and, creating mischief with that, right? We don't allow that, right? So we've got processes where as you sort of do this, first of all, you yourself are in the room and consenting. Number two, every generation is watermarked. And third, if there is a need to sort of track back a piece of content out there and verify, A, was it done in ElevenLabs, and B, what was the source of generation, we make that happen the whole way. And so, in fact, that matching, that's a 99% precision plus, right?
How many of you would like to have voice clones, your clones of your own voices? Let's have a show of hands. Okay, how many of you are worried that it will be misused? Still a long way to go to gain trust, I think.
I agree, but if you sort of look at these capabilities, we're in something that is maybe 2.5 years old. If you look at this whole category of generative AI, right? So like these things, I think everything is a story of time. Everything's a story of familiarity and comfort and usage. And everything's also a story of private and public entities sort of working together to evolve sort of the new standards, right? And you already start seeing some standards here in the space like C2PA, for example, digital fingerprinting and so forth, so on. So I think this is a journey that society, private actors, public actors go on together to sort of find that equilibrium which makes sense for people at large.
Right. Akis, as a smartphone maker, what has the last week meant for you? This whole Trump tariffs has roiled public markets. People are too scared to look at their stock market portfolio these days. But as a smartphone manufacturer, you make in India, you make in China. I think in India you have partnerships with Dixon and BYD India. What has this meant for you?
So yeah, as you said, for us, I mean, and especially at our scale, we started now kind of 4 years ago. India is our kind of main market, and we already kind of manufacturing everything here in India. So at this stage, quite limited in a way.
So prices will not be impacted for now.
Limited, yeah. Limited impact.
Right. But we also understand that you're in the process of getting into this big joint venture in India. You're identifying manufacturing partners and, you could be investing a huge amount. So tell us about your manufacturing plans for India. Will we see India becoming a global export hub for nothing going forward?
Yeah, we're very bullish on India, to be honest. When we started this company, the level of excitement and support we're getting out of India was crazy, to be honest. And I think this is due to the fact that India is one of the largest and youngest digital population. I think the level of expertise and knowledge that people have in tech here, is way beyond anywhere in the world. The questions we can ask about like processor, what type of RAMs, and users are so knowledgeable. So I think this kind of tech savviness, ever since we started, brought in this kind of organic traction as a new entrant in the tech space. And since then, our growth has been tremendous. Last year, we're the fastest growing smartphone brand in India, and I think the future is actually big. I feel that basically, India is at the verge of an entire new revolution when it comes to the smartphone industry. I think India will be quite rapidly at the forefront on the global stage. And for us, we want to be part of the journey. We can facilitate that journey. We've been in the industry for quite some time. Now we have already a big team here in Delhi and planning to aggressively expand. And again, the whole ecosystem, I feel, is very good as well. I think the government with, Make in India, Digital India, Startup India, there's been this kind of foundation in terms of a thriving tech ecosystem that will help to really kind of propel that growth, especially within the kind of smartphone industry. So yeah, we're quite excited and ramping up very rapidly in terms of our expansions plan here. Both from an operation standpoint and manufacturing level.
Right. What kind of unusual trends have you observed when it comes to smartphone buying in India? You said that, this is your fastest growing market. You've recently taken charge of the India market in addition to your other responsibilities. What has surprised you? Are you seeing demand come in from smaller cities, from, different age groups? What usage patterns have surprised you?
So the average selling price is increasing year on year. So I guess this is mirroring the sort of growth of the local economy as well. And I think what people are demanding from the tech, from their kind of consumer tech products, start going beyond pure kind of functionalities. Or for the longest period of time, all the sort of new OEMs entering India were purely focusing on, value for money. Here are the specs. Here is the. Whereas I feel now, and we've seen that shift, and I think that's where why also nothing has been growing. People are buying more and more into experiences and more into aspirational brands. And I think that's where it sort of was the perfect match for a brand like us, because ever since we started has been really focusing on the user experience. Everything we've done has been from a user standpoint, because we started this company because we didn't feel excited about what the market had to offer. So every single product we ship to the market are products we're really proud of and products we'll be using ourselves. And that approach really helped kind of growing quite aggressively in India, and then the whole kind of design aspects, careful attention to things that go beyond the pure functionality of the products. We saw also that there was a lot of interest as well. And yeah, it's been going good so far.
Will it be easy for you to break into the US market? Are people kind of bored of Apple there?
I think it's another beast. It's another beast. I think we have already a lot to do here in India, and again, we're quite excited in the way that we're seeing India being at the forefront on the global stage of the smartphone industry. And if you think about it, history, there's been a lot of smartphone brands that were born out of the tailwinds of the big economies. It was first Apple with the Silicon Valley, China 10 years ago. We saw like a lot of like brands coming out of China, and we're definitely again quite bullish on the fact that India is next. So I think this is the place to be for the next 5 to 10 years when it comes to the smartphone.
Wow, India is the place to be for the next 5 to 10 years. Maybe you should relocate from London soon.
In the process actually.
Great. Siddharth, voice is emerging as the new interface across smartphones, earbuds, smart home devices. People are very comfortable using audio messages for everything. So how do you see ElevenLabs integrating into that? Are you exploring partnerships there? For instance, will we see ElevenLabs and Nothing working together?
So, before ElevenLabs, right, I had the opportunity to be a part of the digital video, social media, that whole industry, right? And there you sort of saw with the advent of the mobile telephony revolution, you sort of saw what might have been decades compressed into 2-3 years, right? Right now, from our vantage point, if you sort of look at what is happening with AI and sort of professional enterprise consumer adoption, it is absolutely staggering. It is staggering. So if you think about it, the breadth of use cases, right? How it's cutting across industries, personas, it's just at a scale which is unbelievably exciting when you sort of think about that, right? And, India does have some very unique constructs which allow for this, right? So, for example, there may be 100-odd million podcast listeners today. You got video at 500, 600 million users. You have maybe 140, 150 million voice interactors with their devices, right? To the point that you spoke. The language, the linguistic, the dialect diversity, all of this is sort of the perfect recipe for this, right? Yesterday, Mr. Modi also talked about how we've got an unbelievably fertile content, podcast, creator ecosystem and media ecosystem in the country, right? So I think that's the perfect set of environment for a technology like us to really sort of find its home, and that's what we sort of see, right? So if I think about this, let's say, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years down the line, what do I think will play out? India, which already is, will continue to probably be one of our highest user and usage markets, number one. Number two, we have moved from the phase of sort of people experimenting or just sort of coming in to figure out, wow, this is new, to folks now really doubling down on use cases or trying to figure out, hey, this is where my imagination is, can I scale the technology into that, right? I think a year from now, those things would have proved to be true and you will start seeing population scale at that. That is true. And the third, the way we go to market will surely evolve in that sense, right? Today we've got great online distribution. I think about 70% of our distribution today is by repeat visitors coming to our website and then accessing our technology, right? And we're in the process of setting up, other partnerships, other modes of taking a technology, partnering with big companies and going to market. So yeah, a lot of exciting things in the works in that sense.
Final 2 minutes. So, Akis, tell our audience how you use AI every day, and one tip, how can they use AI to kind of be more efficient, be more productive? Very quick, 1 minute each.
I think when it comes to smartphone, like the use case are still quite limited. Now we introduced basically our first kind of AI features where it acts as a second memory. Nowadays you kind of have content in your notes, in your emails, you take like pictures randomly and so on. So now we've created like a N-1 screen where basically you can brand up everything. And hopefully this will help you kind of trigger more and more kind of proactive actions. So this is a kind of the first step, but then gradually I hope our role will be, because there is a lot of, like, for instance, the privacy concern. I think this is due to the fact that the user hasn't yet been educated or seeing clear use cases which benefit them. But I'm quite sure rapidly when people, to your point, will be spending, just a few minutes versus 10 minutes on the smartphone, because everything is a lot more kind of personalized, contextualized, and kind of raise action straight away so you don't have to look through your smartphone. I think people gradually will be less worried about the whole kind of privacy because they will see so much added value to the user experience. So I think it's going to be more for our work to hopefully bring those experiences in a very intuitive way and seamless, and hopefully get people to see the value. And this is what we're doing at Nothing at the moment, really anchoring in specific use cases and gradually ramping up all our AI products and features.
Right. Final 20 seconds, Siddharth. How do you use AI?
Well, our entire go-to-market machinery has AI embedded in it today. Today before sort of coming to this event, I used AI to sort of prep for this panel.
Okay.
And yeah, as an AI lab, I think the most important thing we do is put Studio Ghibli-like photos in the hands of people and voices.
Great. On that note, a huge round of applause for Akis and Siddharth. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next sentence I say is going to give you a clue as to what we're talking about next. Bharat has stamped its flag